I almost quit my podcast this week, or at least the goal that I had for this first quarter of the year, that I was going to publish 3 episodes a week. I decided to shift it from 1 episode a week to 3 episodes a week, a few weeks into the quarter. So basically for the rest of the quarter, not even a full quarter, to do 3 episodes a week. And to be honest, this week, which is only my second week of doing this, I seriously began to doubt whether or not I could maintain this. It's taking me 3 to 4 or even more hours a day to, come up with the content, record and edit, and then post and publish it all afterwards. Also, because I'm trying to get out so much content, the quality isn't where I want it to be. And I want everything I put out there to be of the utmost quality. And there's so much content out there, I don't want to just add to the noise. I want mine to stand out and to be remarkable. But then I remembered that our brains play this trick on us. When things aren't perfect, when it's unfinished, the quality of the podcast that I'm looking at, the fact that I don't like them as much, then I feel like something's wrong and we have this urge to quit. Because in our brains, before we start a project, they're perfect, right? Because we're only seeing them from the outside, away from the distance. And so then once we get in that messy middle, we feel like this isn't how it's supposed to be. This is not how I imagined it. This was supposed to, kind of be seamless, flowing. This is why, as business owners, many times, we start with one kind of strategy or tactic and it's not going the way we want. So we switch and we keep switching. So we never give any of them long enough because we're looking at them from afar. And before we start doing it, we think it's going to be perfect. But once we start doing it, we're in that messy middle and it's not going the way it wants. And we don't see the rewards of it yet because we haven't given it the time to go, to develop and to really reap the rewards. And I talked about this more in episode 5. I will put that link in there. But if you are a business owner and you're waiting for something to be perfect, or you keep trying out different solutions and then giving them up halfway through, you're actually killing your growth by doing that. It's okay if it's not perfect. And I'm going to talk about that struggle when you feel like you need to give up. And I'm going to share with you today why I decided not to quit this 3 days a week with my podcast, even though in some ways I feel like it's killing me right now over the last 2 weeks. And I'm going to tell you why choosing volume over quality is actually the fastest and most effective way to build the high performance systems that you are craving for your business. Welcome to Mastering Business Flow, the essential podcast for business owners ready to transform their work life. I'm your host, Cords Lundau, a certified productivity and systems expert. I'll help you close that critical CEO gap, the gap between working hard and having real control over your business. We dive into the systems and skills of high-performing CEOs so that you can stop being stuck in daily tasks and start flourishing today. It's time to achieve simpler, higher quality living. Let's start flowing. These are the 5 reasons that I am sticking with my original goal of 3 podcasts to 1 for the quarter. The first one is what I'm going to call the one thing lesson, right? This is basically Gary Keller's book. I mean, a lot of people talk about this, even in EOS, they talk about how each person has their one number. The leader should have more, according to him. But I really like Gary Keller's one thing, saying just focus on one, because really we tend to get distracted when we do too many. Gary Keller pointed out in the one thing is that when you really do focus on one thing, other things will get messy. It is part of the process because we only have a limited amount of time, right? So if we're putting all this time into the one thing that it needs, so for example, me with the podcast, other things will slide. And it feels somewhat scary. We've got to develop some sort of tolerance for this chaos that happens because, we're not going to be able to get everything done that we want to get done. And as CEOs, we like control. We want control. We want to feel that everything is in order, but we have to let some of that go. When we put our focus on one thing, other things will slide, but this is not a failure. This is a sign that you're focusing. The most important thing is that you're focused on the right thing. The fact that I've focused on this podcast means I haven't filed my taxes yet, which normally I like to do by now. I haven't gotten to inbox 0. I haven't followed up with everybody on my list. I haven't engaged in social media the way I wanted to. because I know that this is the thing right now that I want to focus on, I want to perfect, I want to learn. And if we want to get good at something, the truth is we have to dedicate time to it. And if we keep diverting our time with trying to do it all, that one thing, the thing that is important, will not get done. And this is the biggest problem that most of us have, is we're so worried about letting all that little stuff slide that we never do the big thing. We think that big thing takes too much time. And it's not that the big thing takes too much time. It's that we're letting all these little things pull us away from it. And so that's why I've decided to keep with that focus. And I'll talk about that later. But the fact that these other little things are sliding, it means you're on the right track. And of course, there's the eliminate, automate, and delegate can help you deal with some of this. And I recommend putting in as much as that as possible, because you want to design it so that you are spending as much time on your more important thing than anything else. And even Oliver Burkeman in Meditations for Mortals says, really all that matters is that you did one thing that matters every day, right? Don't think about everything else. It's not all going to get done. So I have really been focusing on that. And I told myself the 3 times a week, I'm focusing on that, even though it may not be working perfectly, that other things are sliding. I'm getting that one thing done. And Gary Keller's statement and also Meditations for Mortals have given me that permission to not feel guilty about the stuff that I'm not doing. Because to me, that's a sign that I'm doing the thing that is important and that matters to me right now. The second reason I've decided to keep up doing my podcast is from reading Alex Hormozi talking about how to get leads. And he recommends that you spend 100 minutes a day doing content creation. Now, this actually correlates pretty closely with the one thing where Gary Keller talks about when you do your one thing, you should be working on it for 4 hours a day. And Oliver Burkeman in Meditations for Mortals and Mithu Storoni in Hyper Efficient point out that really we can't manage more than the 4 hours. And so what we want to do is take that and again, I've talked about this several times, and I'll link the other, I think that's the episode on the one thing, or I'll find which one it is. But when we focus on this one thing and that's max 4 hours, we're better off doing that in the morning. And then in the afternoon, we can let all these other things happen. We have to arrange our schedule around it. This is why they call it the rocks. You put the big rocks in first, and then all the other little things can go around it. And again, maybe you won't get all the little things done. But the point is, you can make that time for the big thing when you aren't doing all of the little thing. And you realize that, not all of these other projects need your time. So some of these authors are, like Mithu Storoni and Oliver Burkeman, are trying to show that this is the limit of the amount of time we can put towards our kind of deep focus, is that 4 hours. But I think what Hormozi is trying to say is that most of us are not doing it, right? Most of us are piddling away our time on trying to get everything done, not focusing on the one thing. So he's telling you, you've got to give it your attention, and he gives you a very specific number, which makes it very easy and concrete and to understand. And he emphasizes either reach out to 100 leads per day or spend 100 minutes developing content per day. And it could be warm or cold leads, or it could be free content or ads. But essentially, you want to think of this as a just sheer volume. So why does he focus on this sheer volume and just pushing it? And again, we're not saying do it all day. It's still a limited amount of time. So I think that makes it manageable. But by spending, that 100 minutes a day on content, you are overcoming any kind of luck. You're perfecting systems, right? You're powering through that messy middle. You're getting over it. And if you think about when you first do something, it takes you a lot longer. You don't have these kind of efficiencies figured out. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes, because you figure out systems, you figure out methods and tools and kind of cheats or hacks or whatever as you're doing it. Now, Hormozi doesn't say I need to produce 3 episodes a week, right? I could do my 100 minutes per day of content creation and spend that all just on one podcast per week. Or I could spend that 100 minutes a day and make 1 podcast per month. Now, those would be much better podcasts. So why did I choose instead to do 3 podcasts a week? Part of it is, I think what Hormozi is really trying to get at is just by putting those reps in and to get those efficiencies, right? If I'm only producing one podcast a month or a week, it's taking me a lot longer to figure out titles, figure out what content to talk about, how I'm going to talk about it, how I'm going to organize myself, how I'm going to edit it, publish it. And the more I do it, the more reps I get in, the more practice. So when he says reach out to 100 leads a day, think of the number of calls that you end up getting, just that sheer number of volume. And, he talks a lot about sales calls. You're just getting that volume of practicing your sales conversations. And the same is true with me with producing the 3 episodes a week. Essentially, in 3 months, I have the amount of content it would have almost taken me all year to make. That's more titles I can test out, more, I can collect more metrics. And a lot of times in our businesses, we don't have the metrics we need to be able to tell where the weak points are in the system. But it's only by putting those reps in that you start to see where your kind of blockages are. And it gives you the ways to make those improvements. But if you only do it once, you don't know. You do it twice, you get a little bit more data. The more times you do it, the more data you have. And that is what we want with our businesses too. We want to get those reps in. We want that data. We want those reps to inform us, to help us become more efficient and help us to be able to scale. And also it's giving me, just by focusing on this podcast, now I've got exponentially more content to share because I can take those podcasts, I can share them as social media, blog posts, I can use them in courses, share with potential clients or current clients. And even just from 2 months of doing a podcast, I already have a backlog of content that I have not even been able to get all through it. So it does feel like an unsustainable pace right now because I'm at the beginning, but that doesn't mean I should quit. That means I need to keep going. This is pushing me to find ways to simplify. It also means I just have to get it out there. I could spend, if I was waiting for it to be perfect and spending 100 minutes until I had the perfect one, I would probably never publish it, or it would take me months to publish one episode. But the fact that I have to get that volume out, it makes me just get it done. And now I've got the volume out there. It also means that I have to speak more naturally, like I'm not scripting it all out, perfectly researched everything. And by doing that, more of my personality comes through. I know even with some of my more beginning ones, which was I was essentially taking my blog format where I really was thinking through and kind of perfecting it all. And then I was essentially doing that and trying to read a script. And part of the reason I'm doing a podcast is so that people can hear my voice, see my personality. And if I'm just reading a script, you aren't getting that. I need to be able to speak more freely and see who I really am, see me in action, feel my, my tone of voice. And of course, the fact that I move all over the place, which is something to work on. And even these little asides, right? So this is the same that we want to do with our business. We just want to get those reps in, learn how to be who we are, show ourselves, and build that muscle and the processes to scale so that it takes us less time as we improve our efficiencies. The third example or reason I want to bring out is that quality actually improves with the quantity. So like I talked about before, getting those reps in, each time I do one of those reps, I'm learning. Mr. Beast has said, and most people have heard this, I believe, is that don't come to him for help while making videos or ask him for any advice until you have made at least 100 videos and made one small improvement after every single one. He recognizes simply by putting in those reps, by doing it over and over again, you are learning from the process. And if you think about it, if people follow his advice, make those 100 videos, make an improvement after, even a very small improvement after every single video, how many of them actually even need to come to him after those 100 videos? I doubt really any of them do, because by then they've probably figured it out. The other thing that you think about is that Mr. Beast didn't start out good either. I can look, this is like looking at something from afar. I can see his videos, how great they are, how well he's doing, and think, oh, well, I could never achieve that. He started the same place, right? He only got there by putting in the reps and doing it. He spent years making videos before he got any traction. And so I may not be at the quality that I want, but by forcing myself to do more episodes every week, I am improving that quality. And then I can get to where I want. If I sit back back and wait and plan and research and take more classes and even spend that 100 minutes a day, learning and perfecting by planning it, I'm not learning as much as I would by simply doing it. Getting those reps in, I'm learning and trying to make each one just one little bit better. There's marginal improvements like the British bicycle team that you read about in the Atomic Habits. And I also liked, and I've used this line before from Pat Flynn, he says, you got to be cringe before they binge, right? I don't even like looking at or listening to my podcast after I've produced them because, in my head is that perfect thing. Like I talked about, when you look at it from afar, it's perfect. And then when I get in there, it is not what I imagined it to be. In my imagination, I'm going to be all fluent and my language is going to be perfect. I'm not going to stutter and repeat myself and say stupid things. But then when I actually get into it, it is that way. And I edit out very little because I don't want to spend my time creating a false impression. And this is how I learn. I do go back and look at it. I read my transcript and I see what I've got and I can learn from that, right? I'm learning all my hesitations or whatever I do. I see everything that's bad in it because it's not the end product that I'm imagining. But by just doing this quantity, I can't be worried about perfect. I have to because it's never going to be perfect anyway. But what I can do is each time improve it a little bit. So I'm not hiding behind perfectionism anymore. I'm getting out there and making improvements and learning as I go. And who knows how long I'll stick with this, but hopefully as I stick with it, you will see drastic improvements. Plus, the other reason I decided to stick with this is simply because the idea of when we set goals and the messages we tell ourselves and how we set these goals. Now it's February as I record this, and traditionally by February, most people have long abandoned their goals. As business owners, hopefully we are keeping a little bit more attention of them, but I imagine most of us have. This is one reason I like to set quarterly goals as my business focus, because when we set a goal for the whole year, it's so long and it's hard to achieve. But I really want to think of quarterly goals because it's long enough to be motivating and achieve, if I set it for just tomorrow, I'm like, oh, it's impossible. I can't ever get it done by then. But it's long enough of a time that it makes me put those reps in, right? Like if I said for this whole quarter, I did say for this whole quarter, I was going to do these podcasts. It's not like saying, oh, I'll just do one and this next week and that's it. Like it gives me enough time to really test out and see if this idea, this strategy, this tactic is going to work for me and for my business. If I had only said, I'll try to make one, it's not going to do it. If I had said, I just need to try to do a podcast this year, get one out, I might not have ever gotten started. I would have spent the whole year researching it. But I said, I'm going to be producing them at first I said once a week for the first quarter of this year. And then partway through the quarter, I changed it to 3 times a week just to really drill down in on it. I realized I needed more reps. So this is why I think that these quarterly goals, or they're called rocks in EOS, that when you set this, it really does motivate you, but it also gives you long enough of a time to stick with it. To test it out and see if it's going to work. So that gives me a little bit of peace. Right now, this feels unsustainable. And I mean, I told myself that so many times this week, that 3 episodes a week is not sustainable. I should probably change it. Maybe I just go to twice a week or even just once a week. It'll be fine. I was telling myself that all week. Because it is, the thing with the quarterly goal is you want it to be a little bit scary, right? I set this goal because it is not an easy thing to do. It pushes me more. And by pushing just beyond my comfort zone, I'm more likely to learn and grow from it. We do not want to be setting comfortable goals. We need to set uncomfortable goals. But the other thing is, it's only a quarter. I mean, I'm halfway through the quarter. At the end of the quarter, I can reevaluate and I can say, you know what? This isn't giving me the results I wanted in the business. It's not worth, I will drop it. And I will feel good that I gave it a really good try. If we just quit when it gets hard and messy and feels uncomfortable, we have not been with it long enough to know if it really works. And this happens too often, right? We get to that kind of messy, uncomfortable part, abandon it, and say, no, this strategy doesn't work. It happens over and over again with business owners. And I have felt like that. I can understand. I agree with it. But that's why this quarterly goal really helps. We can do it for just that little amount of time, and your 100 minutes a day, you can do it. And it's long enough to test it out. So, I mean, it could be that at the end of the quarter, I decide not to do it. Maybe I decide to cut down to fewer episodes, but at least I will have a good number of reps and enough time to truly test out this idea to know if it's worth doing. And I will not feel at all guilty if I abandon this. The last reason I decided to stick with it is we are in business for the long game, right? We know that what we do today, we are sowing and we reap the benefits for years to come. So if you aren't starting your focus time, you say you're going to do it sometime in the future, well, then you're only delaying the results that you could get. So the fact that I'm doing this podcast right now, like podcasts do not bring an immediate ROI. I'm not going to, the podcast today is not going to bring me a customer tomorrow or today. It could be years. But the fact that I'm putting in all these reps now, making all these podcasts now, means that in a few years, I will have a huge library out there, and it gives something to attract people and show them what I do, what I talk about, and how I can help them. So I can reap those benefits in several years from now. Now, if I'm not making these podcasts today, I don't have that opportunity. I'm missing out on that opportunity of what I am sowing. I'll have nothing to reap. And the whole idea of this, sowing and reaping is that whatever you sow is actually much smaller. Like if you put a seed in the ground, that's what you're sowing, is much smaller than reaping the harvest, right? The trees, you're not reaping a tree, the fruit from the tree. So that's what I'm really focused on today. And as business owners, we always need to be thinking about that long game. And I've talked about this even, I think, in episode 1 with doing the marathon, how that is compared to running a sprint. And if you are only looking for that harvest and that immediate, and you don't think about what you need to be doing today for the long-term benefit, you're not going to have a long sustainable business. And if you feel like your business is running you rather than you're running it, that you're just chasing things and you don't have this long-term plan, sign up for my no-cost email course. And what I do is I talk about one thing you can do each week to help you reap those long-term benefits in your business. It's at cordslindau.com/business-growth. I don't have to remember how to say that, but I'll put the link in the show note. So that way it gives you a plan for how you can start making those actions today, which you can reap then later. Okay, so now here's my challenge to you. How can you put this into action in your own business? I want you to look and find one area. Remember, we just want to do one thing. Someplace that you're stalling, feel like you probably have some kind of nudge or feeling, I should do this, or, I want to try this. Or maybe it's something you've tried, but not consistently. It could be maybe your sales script, your hiring process. Maybe it's even publishing content like what I'm doing. And I want you to commit to a volume sprint, right? We're going to commit to at least, I'll just let you do 90 minutes a day. I'm not going to ask you for the 4 hours a day, but just commit to that time of putting in the reps. And I want you to commit for the rest of the quarter. I don't care how long this quarter is, if we've got a week left or if we've got 13 weeks still. I want you to commit that you're going to do that one thing 90 minutes a day for the rest of this quarter. And remember, if it's not going as if you expected, if you feel like giving up, that's normal and that's to be expected. It's part of the process. So don't worry about that. Then, at the end of the quarter, however long it is from now, I want you to stop. I want you to think, is this what I want to continue doing? Do I want to tweak it some way? Or do I want to just scrap this altogether and pick something else? And then pick your new thing for next quarter. And then you just rinse and repeat. And that is how you grow a business and you grow your ability. As Gary Keller talks about in The One Thing, it's like dominoes. Each little domino knocks down one that's twice as big. And if you stack up enough dominoes, starting even with the smallest action, you can get all the way to the moon with a domino so big. So just focus right now on what you need to do today, that first one thing. Commit to doing it at least 90 minutes a day, and you will be amazed at the feedback you get and the growth that you experience in your business. If you know of another business owner who could benefit from this, this is a power up method for you. Share this episode with them and together decide to be accountability buddies. By telling someone else and by checking in with them, you are 75% more likely to achieve your goal. So do that today and stay tuned for next week. Thank you for listening. Next week, because today's Friday, it'll be Monday. Thank you.